Hey guys, how's it going? It's your boy M.K.S here, back with another video and another topic. I hope you're having a good day, afternoon, evening, night, or whatever, depending on where you are in the world, and all that good stuff. Last night I went out for a lovely meal at an Indian restaurant, but I ate too much, so my stomach was actually killing me. So I sort of ruined my own night by not having portion control. Anyway, I thought I'd give a nice life story as I often do, but I'll try and keep the intros short and sweet as I often do. I thought I'd make these videos for that's India's Independence Day tomorrow. I thought I'd make one for India's Independence Day and how I hope to have ideas to benefit India, but I thought I'd do one for Malaysia, Indonesia, and Singapore, which are countries I normally talk about, as well as South Africa actually as well, which I often talk about. I'd love for them to be part of a network I call M.I.I.S.A.S. It's nothing to do with the British SAS, but it could be its own version of such. But it's more of a network between those nations. But my fears are, to be honest, and I do like to try and be as honest as possible in these videos, my fears are repeating myself too much, which I always kind of do, and because of my patterns and things like that, especially with like lists and stuff like that, and also how I'm going to cover different ideas, or if I'm going to cover the same sort of ideas for each of these 5 great nations that great as in for me anyway, they're great as I support them, or great could be large as well. But anyway, as I say, I try not to waffle. No, the intro went on a bit too long perhaps, but as ever, I'd love to read what you think, and any ideas you have to benefit these nations, like how they can network together. So basically, I'd love for them to be part of this network, M.I.I.S.A.S. M.I.I.S.A.S. I don't know how you pronounce it, but I'd love to hear what you think, or read what you think about that, and all the ideas I cover. And if you want to make a reaction video, I'd welcome that as well. But I hope you won't be too harsh. You can meme me if you want, but again, hopefully it won't be too harsh. I'll try and laugh along with it if you take the pick a little bit. But again, I won't be going too much, too deep, or whatever. Anyway, without further ado, here are some of my lists of ideas. Here is a list of some ideas for Malaysia. If I can learn to speak properly, for myself is to get elocution lessons, not electrocution lessons. But anyway, so number 1, I would love for Malaysia and all Malaysians, all possible Malaysians, to unite together to support each other and see what they can achieve together by working together. I'm a great believer if you unite together, you can achieve a lot. If you look at like ants, how small they are as individuals, but when they work together, they can make a massive difference. So I think cooperation, collaboration, things like that are pretty cool. I hope Malaysians and those of Malaysian descent or background, or those with a soft spot, for Malaysia, will all come together to look at how they can benefit the nation, country, whichever term you prefer to call it. Number 2, on that note, I'd love for them to learn from each other. So older generations teach younger people what they know, or even younger people now can teach older people things like technology or things like that maybe older people don't know as well. So yeah, they can learn from each other of all ages, and like age not being too much of a barrier, but teaching each other what they know, passing on skills and knowledge and information, teaching and training each other, and maybe even those from the diaspora to support each other. Also, as I say, I would love for them to be part of this network, M.I.I.S.A.S, M.I.I.S.A.S, or however you would pronounce it. So Malaysia, India, Indonesia, South Africa, and Singapore. I normally put it in that kind of order, and especially the 4 Asian nations to work together on cooperating on all sorts of things. Again, they could see what they can teach each other, learn from each other, and that kind of thing. Number 3, if these videos ever get monetized, I hope to, in this case, donate, say, to as much as the money as possible. If they ever get monetized, if I get to make money from them, profits, or whatever you want to call it, revenue, profit, or whatever, I hope to donate as much as that. Whatever I don't need, I hope to donate to, in this case, I'll say Malaysia. So I hope Malaysians will want to support these videos, partly because, as well as hopefully the ideas benefiting Malaysia, I also hope that the content, also if they do make any profits, as a revenue or whatever, if they do make money basically, if they're monetized, I could donate that to Malaysia. Trying to think of an acronym I thought of earlier, but anyway, moving on. I'll say it's just past 2 in the morning here in the UK, but I went to sleep really early just to have a short rest. And unfortunately, I slept for a bit too long. Like, I meant to sleep for an hour, but I slept for like 3 hours, 3 or 4 hours, and then I decided I might as well. Once I had the energy, I thought I might as well be able to make a video. I'd also love to know what Malaysians do for fun and what Malaysians think of as like liberty. What do Malaysians think of as being free, and that kind of thing. One of the reasons why I want to support Malaysia is because the fact they were colonized, so I believe they lost some of their liberty, which I think countries that were colonized did, where obviously they were ran by an overseas power. So in this case, I think Portugal, Malaysia, and Singapore used to be one nation. So they were ran by Portugal, so I think they lost a lot of their freedom. That's one of the reasons why I want to support them. Another is because they have supported Eurasians, which I hope to come to in more detail. Number 4, I think that covers number 3. Number 4, I would love for Malaysians, as well as the other nations I just mentioned it before, M.I.I.S.A.S, M.I.I.S.A.S, or whatever you call it, to work together, cooperate together, to keep each other safe. So all of their law-abiding citizens, especially all of their citizens generally, I would love for them to keep them as safe as possible, and to cooperate on like online cyber security and things like that, to prevent any potential invasions or threats like terrorism or anything like that, and also both on and offline threats, and like to keep, as I say, all their citizens, especially law-abiding citizens, as safe as possible. So Malaysia cooperating with those other nations I mentioned as a sort of network where they support each other in areas like business, but also in terms of keeping each other safe. I'd also love for them to stand for peace around the world. I mean, the idealist in me, or very naive person in me, I suppose you could say, same sort of thing. The dreamer in me would love to see those nations working together, like to have each other's back. So maybe they wouldn't even need to have as much spending on militarism or things like that. But I suppose how well they trust each other and can work together, and whether they still want to have the same size military, or they can scale back so that they can save money and spend it on other things. But I suppose they're working together as one sort of military to prevent invasions, and again other threats that they could have. I say existential threats, but other threats generally, like cybercrime, other such forms of crime, including terrorism and things like that. They might not need as big a military, or they may want to have the same sort of security forces. But yeah, I think the main thing would be internal security, and perhaps having an agreement that they certainly won't invade each other, and they won't even invade other nations, but they'll only work to protect each other as those 5 nations. Number 5, again, I dream for those 5 nations to work together, especially the 4 Asian nations, but again, working with South Africa as well. Again, on cybersecurity and things like that, but also on helping each other's citizens with their ambitions, as well as keeping them safe, improving their quality of life, so giving opportunities to Malaysians. I hope Malaysians out there, and those of Malaysian descent, and those with a soft spot for Malaysia, or those who love Malaysia will love videos like this, I hope. Number 6, I would love for Malaysians to support and to follow and support Italian football, especially Serie A, but even the lower leagues maybe, and the national team. And I would love for Italian football to work with special needs or learning disabled or neurodiversity organisations and schools and whatnot, and associations and whatnot, in Malaysia and across Asia, including again those nations I talked about, as much as possible. So hopefully it'd be a mutual support. Maybe even in return, Italy could support their economies, the nations I talked about, and in return they would follow and support Italian football, especially Serie A teams, which I hope will increase the value of Italian football as well. So as ever, I'd love to make Italian football more popular. Number 7, similar for Celtic. Again, I hope they will work together with Celtic, and the club will do a lot of charitable work, but again, a mutual benefit. I hope both Italian football and Celtic will have football academies and sports clubs in nations like Malaysia, and again those other nations I talked about, as well as across Asia. I'd also love for Malaysia to work with other Asian nations, especially Central Asian nations, like to work on Asian unity more generally. 8, I'd love for all people in Malaysia from all different backgrounds to work together and encourage racial unity and harmony. One of the reasons, as I say, why I want to support countries like Malaysia, nations, countries, whatever you want to call them, like Malaysia, is because of the fact that they looked after Eurasians, in their case, Kristangs, I think they're called, if I pronounce it right, in Malaysia and Singapore. But yeah, all those nations I talked about mainly, it's, as well as the fact they were colonized, it's because they've looked after Eurasians. So I'd love for my fellow Eurasians and possibly mixed race people to support them as well. But I'd love for all possible citizens from all backgrounds, like those who are indigenous. I think there's some of a Chinese background and Indian background and whatnot. So I'd love for them to benefit all their citizens, whatever their background, and say as long as you're a law-abiding citizen and you respect others, like they support each other as much as possible. And I'd love to support their creative projects and things like that. Number 9, I'd love to support their projects generally, especially poets, artists, writers, architectural projects, designs, and all sorts of things that they work on in those nations, which I mentioned again, which I'd love to be part of that network. When I was thinking of making these videos, I wondered whether I should just make one for all of those 5 nations I talk about, like M.I.I.S.A.S, because like then I wouldn't have to repeat myself too much when I make the list for other nations. But supporters or fans or whatever you want to call them of India, in Indonesia and Singapore also watch these videos, especially the ones for their specific nation, which I hope will have some ideas which will benefit them as well. And number 10, I hope they will support young people. And I'm sure there was a point I thought about when I woke up thinking about making this video, but I can't quite remember it now. But yeah, I hope that was it. Like, I hope banks and businesses will help people set up their own businesses and build and grow their own businesses, create and build and grow their own businesses, especially young people, and helping them with education in all sorts of fields, especially like learning about business as well, or even STEM or the main subject generally. Although I know for technology, I normally like to help Indigenous Africans and Australasians. Maybe they could also help to train and educate people in Indigenous Africans and Australasians. Maybe their organisations could help with such, which could give the country, again, nation, country, whichever term you prefer, or whatever you prefer to call them, those nations like M.I.I.S.A.S or M.I.I.S.A.S could support African and Asian nations, African and Indigenous Australasians in learning about STEM, and in return have better trade deals and things like that as well. So maybe other Asian nations as well could get involved. And maybe even Malaysia could have a relation with the BRICS if they don't already join them. I know so many different nations have joined the BRICS, so the acronym probably isn't that descriptive. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this video up. I did go a bit over schedule, but I hope people out there enjoyed it, as I say, and I am out. Peace out.